I have a background in mechanical engineering. As I was coming towards the end of my graduation, I kind of developed a liking towards operational efficiency along with engineering management and also supply chain, which is when I decided that I need to learn more about this field. I was a part of a student automotive team called Team Jabas, where we build all-terrain vehicles. That's where it all started. Many people do not know about this, which is why they don't apply. And you might be aware that the university is so big, we ourselves do not know the opportunities out there, right?
Correct. How much time it took to prepare this resume? Because people think it's like a couple of days job.
You can make a resume within one day. You won't land a job with that resume. I spent
People should start a bit early to applying for jobs so they can understand what their resume is lacking. So AI and automation, how they are going to affect supply chain, and are supply chain people going to replace by AI?
I do not think AI is going to replace anyone. AI is only going to.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
I did everything that was in my control. There were aspects that were outside of my control that didn't work out in my favor.
Namaste and welcome to Deep Diving with Samyak Jain. This is your one-stop podcast for exploring career journeys, uncovering industry secrets, and gaining valuable insight from leaders in the world of supply chain management. Today, we are thrilled to have Bill Jason Duckworth with us. Bill is a sourcing leader at Penske and a dynamic supply chain professional with expertise in capacity planning, procurement strategies, and lean methodologies. With hands-on experience at companies like Schneider Electric and a passion for streamlining operations, Bill has been driving instrumental changes in driving cost efficiencies and operational excellence. So, in this episode, we will dive into Bill's career story, discuss the innovations shaping supply chain management, and uncover how he has gone through all his job strategies. Let's tune in and let's go ahead. So, first of all, thank you, Bill, for joining us today for this podcast. And I hope it will help most people out there because you have a different trend of like how you went through all your job search journey. So, thank you so much for joining in.
No, actually, thank you, Samyak, for having me, and also thank you for the kind words. That's really kind of you for sharing.
So let's start with basic, like what everyone wants to know. So what was your journey from like doing your undergrad in which you have done and what field you have done to your journey at Penske right now? So how it has all been and how you went through?
So I have a background in mechanical engineering. I pursued my bachelor's in mechanical engineering from VIT Vellore. As I was coming towards the end of my graduation, I kind of developed a liking towards operational efficiency along with engineering management and also supply chain, which is when I decided that I need to learn more about this field, and then I decided to pursue my master's in engineering management. Fortunately, I got an admit at Northeastern University, and from there kind of pursued my master's, and again fortunate enough to get an internship with Schneider Electric, and from there my procurement skills started to grow. I started to learn more within the procurement domain, and my interest within the domain kind of developed from there. Right after my internship, I thought this is where I want to pursue my career in, and I was looking for roles in within procurement, and which is when I found a role at Penske.
Nice. Okay, so like as you mentioned, you were able to understand that you want to go for your supply chain or like engineering management kind of degree when you were in undergrad, right? So like how it came through, like did you do some projects at that time or like how you were able to answer that thing? Because like many people are confused, they just take engineering management and they are like, okay, we'll figure it out later on.
Yes, I didn't take up any direct projects, but I was a part of a student automotive team called Team Jabas, where we used to build all-terrain vehicles. And within that, you could call it like as one mega project. Like I had hands-on experience on manufacturing and looking out for operational efficiencies. That's where it all started for me, my interest within this field, and it's basically from that project onwards I started to get, to have an inclination towards supply chain management, engineering management. And then, like I said, pursuing my master's and then getting an internship is what drifted me towards procurement. So that was like my shift from engineering management, operational efficiencies to supply chain management, and then coming closer to procurement.
So like when you like joined Northeastern, right? Then so after getting graduated from VIT Vellore, how many colleges you applied to and like how many colleges you were able to get in? Like is what was this your one of the dream university that you wanted to get into?
I applied to about five and I got admits from three, and Northeastern was my option because that was the only university that was offering co-op program.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true because I think for me also like that co-op is very pretty big thing because having that 6 or 8 months of in co-op
Hands-on
helps you
experience.
paying one semester of fees.
Yes, you can look at it that way also.
Yeah, and then when you have like one, just like for me, I was very early in my career, like for 1 year only, I have done some work back in India. So it was like I needed some more US experience before getting to a full-time job, because I have heard like it gets easier when you have an internship in US before the graduation.
No, yeah, right on. Exactly. You're right. Yes. I did not have that experience because I like formal experience in a corporate setting. I did have hands-on experience, like, with the team, but
Correct.
I think that experience helped me get my admit. And then from there, my work with the Northeastern and my engagement with the business school, I think helped me with my internship. And then it started to like snowball. My experience started to, my relevant
Correct.
experience started to pile up. And then I think, which is what contributed to my placement at Penske.
So what, like how you decided on the courses that you have to take during your like master's degrees? Like you have like 4 electives and 4 mandatory. So how you took like 4 elective courses?
Sure, that's a great question. My electives were mostly based on what I wanted to do in the future and see if there was some alignment. Like, I did not take any elective like psychology or anything, which I did not have to do anything in the future. So, my electives were mostly aligning to sourcing and procurement. I have a graduate certificate in supply chain management from it's Northeastern's business school, basically. My electives were supply chain analytics, principles of sourcing and procurement, and then another supply chain course, but all related to the business part of sourcing and procurement.
So what you're saying is that you have done some of the courses from like MBA School of Northeastern.
Yes.
So like how you were able to get those courses? Like is there something that everyone can do, or like is it something you have to go through some procedure to get approval?
Yes, there is a procedure. You need to talk to obviously the business school. There, you would have a contact. If you find out around, if you ask the business school, they can guide you. We used to have a set contact.
So we had two, one who used to support us as a co-op advisor, and one who was like a career advisor from our COE.
Yes, yes. So the COE advisor can guide you who the right person would be in the business school, and you can join the dots from there.
Okay,
But
so
you do need to, I think you need to submit an SOP or something of that sort, basically explaining to them why you want to be a part of this curriculum because they have like 40, 50 seats only.
oh, so around like only 40-50 people out of like thousands of people that come to Northeast, only 40-50 can shift towards MBA if they want to do a certain of MBA sort of small degree like minor on the side.
Yes, but I didn't find it that competitive because there are not many people who even want to do that. So from 1,060 students might seem like a very small percentage, but the remaining 940 are not even trying to get in there, right?
Oh, so like it could be like other people don't know about this, or like it's like more because MBA gets more tougher, right, in compared to MEM? Because I think MBA is more like you have to read all the research, those papers and all those. Because MBA is kind of the degree where like people goes after 5 to 6 years of experience.
Yeah, so this is not like a full-blown MBA, so you necessarily do not need that previous experience. It's like a graduate certification, but it definitely gets you connected because you have like people from the industry in your class sitting there.
Correct.
So you get that exposure. But to your point, it could be many people do not know about this, which is why they don't apply. And you might be aware that the university is so big, we ourselves do not know the opportunities out there, right?
Correct.
So in this case, I was fortunate enough to get to know about it from my friends, and because it aligned to my interests, I gave it a try.
So, like, will you recommend to other people like they should give this a try and read their curriculum of like if they are a
So there are two aspects for this certification. One is from the business school, but then other is from the College of Engineering, which is a more technical. The courses are a little bit more technical as compared to the business part of it. So the certification from the College of Engineering has a different set of courses and would be given by the College of Engineering, obviously. And those courses have to do with regression analysis, forecasting, inventory management, deeper dive on that. So, I just want to make it clear, two options, one for the business school, one from College of Engineering. Based on your interests and future goals, you can choose either one of them.
okay, so like let's start going on like how your job search got started from there, right? So now you are in your college and now it has been a year. So now you have to get a co-op because we are allowed to do a co-op after a year in US, right?
Mhm.
So like how you got into Schneider? Like what was your strategy? How you used to apply to jobs? Like did you use to network, or like what was the whole process, and like what's the whole timeline also? So when you started applying for jobs?
Okay, for my internship, right? This was about 2 years ago, and my memory is not that clear, but trying to remember. So the basic fundamental for landing a job, right, even in the current market, I think the market started to deteriorate from the internship timeline 2022 onwards. The economy started to slow down with hopes of, when we were in our internship phase, we were hoping that by the time we reach our full time, it would come up, but it did not, right? My basic fundamental landing a job was applying more than 100 jobs a day, right?
Understood.
That's the first key feature that you need to do. And after that, obviously, like LinkedIn has a feature where it only gives you the jobs that meet your interests, right? So not applying like randomly everywhere, applying to the jobs that match your experience and the way you want to go in the future. So while I was applying for my internship role, I was pursuing my supply chain management certification, all right, and I was very interested and involved with sourcing and procurement because of my curriculum at that time. So I was only looking for sourcing and procurement roles, and I did apply for about 500 or 600 roles, and then I got calls about 10 to 20 maybe at max, and then I had 5 to 10 interviews lined up. I had 4 to 5 final interviews, and then I had 3 offers at the end, and then I chose Schneider.
So, like, from which companies you had multiple offers? Like, one is Schneider
I
and one
One
another.
was Philips. Philips was in upstate New York. They were paying
Ah,
well, but at that point there was no future of the role because they were not sponsoring
okay.
for H1B, which is why I dropped that. Another one was from Hasbro. First of the offers was from Hasbro. It was not well aligned with sourcing and procurement, which is why I didn't pursue that. And then the third one was with Schneider. Great role. I really loved it. I loved the manager at that point, who I was reporting to, and it turned out to be very good decision after me getting in, and then even after coming out. It was a very nice role.
Okay. So, like, what was like the whole timeline? So, you were, as you came in January of 2021 to US, right? So, you
Hmm.
might be eligible to apply from Jan 2022. So, you started working as a cop from Jan 2022?
Yes.
Okay. So, like, how much months before you started applying to jobs? Like, you started applying for like August
I
2021 or like.
started around July, August, around that time frame. Yes. Before applying for my co-op, I made sure during that summer I prepared myself, with my resume, with with the courses in the top required tools, did some crash courses with that, also studying case studies within the supply chain with supply chain domain. And then I think it was in July, August, around that time frame when I had a prepared resume, I started applying. So August, September, October. October was the peak where I was getting most of the interviews and calls. And my Schneider interview also was in October. I think 18th October, 20th October. All right. And then in November, I got my offer and started
So,
in
like,
Jan.
so it took you around 1 month from starting of the process to the end of the process, right?
The very bulk of the process, 1 month.
Yeah,
But if you look
like
at the background,
just for Schneider Electric, getting the first round to the final,
yes,
it took
yes,
you
yes,
around a
yes.
month. You started applying from August onwards till like November and till you get your job
Yeah.
offers, right?
It's most
Okay.
essentially, yeah.
So like how you prepared your resume. So like it was like how much time it took to prepare your resume, because people, I remember, like people think it's like a couple of days job to prepare a
Mhm.
resume. So I just want to understand like how much time it took, how you made that resume. Did you took help from someone outside also to get it reviewed?
You can make a resume within 1 day, but you won't land a job with that resume. Okay. So for me, I would say it took a couple amounts of iterations. Like right from the start to my final resume, I would say I spent at least 1 to 1.5 months, because my very first iteration of my resume was not up to the mark. And if I compare my first iteration to my last iteration, it's not even like close. It's very like very different, the formatting and even the bullet points in my experience. Okay. And yes, I did get it reviewed by multiple people, including my co-op advisor, my friends, seniors. So I think that's the way where you can get it proofread by others to find out what could be done. So that's the approach I took.
Okay, so I think that's definitely true, because it also took me more than a month or something to get my resume final. So I started like applying in August itself. The resume I had in August was a total different resume I had in September with me.
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. Yep.
Yeah, because I think it helps, like you will get through iteration every week and you will see the iteration, the 3 and 4 iteration, it has changed the whole resume from day one to day
Exactly.
end.
Yes.
And I think that's why people should start a bit early to applying for jobs so they can understand like what their resume is lacking. So like if you're applying for a January onwards, so like if you start from August 1st onwards, just for an example, you have like that 30 days to make your resume prepared and get yourself paged up according to the jobs you have to apply September starting. Because most of the people start from September onwards.
Yes,
When
that's
this
correct.
the classes starts and everyone gets into it. So now they are like they'll start preparing resume and they have like whole September they go into changing their resume and applying on the site. So during that time you are way ahead of them.
Exactly.
I think yeah, that's definitely true, and that's how I think many people who land jobs early start doing those things. I think there are some like cases every time you will see that people started applying in October, got a job in October also, but they are very rare cases.
Yeah, those are outliers, and you'll have
Yeah, those
always
are
exceptions.
outliers. We can't judge our decision, make our decisions based on that. But definitely,
Exactly.
you have gone through so many interviews, like 10 interviews itself for you went for your internships. So, like, how are the interview process for like procurement or supply chain roles in general, and what types of questions people can think of like they are going to be asked, and what are
Are
different
you?
rounds that's taking
Is
place?
this question related to internships or full times or in
Like you
general?
can tell about both of like how you like you can talk we can talk first about internship, what type of questions were expected during internship, and then what type of questions get changed and expected during the full time interview.
Okay, great question. Well, so for internships, questions are not that technical. It's mostly behavioral, and they are basically trying to understand if you have the fundamentals of the role clear and if you can work independently, basically. So that's what they are trying to gauge for your internship. It's not technical. It's mostly behavioral and a little bit of case study based, situation based questions. That's for internship. But when coming to for full times, again, this would be role specific. If if you're applying for a mid senior role or something, then you would have multiple rounds of interviews and multiple case study based questions, and then also a bit of behavioral based questions. Also for supply chain roles, it's kind of mixed. They would put in some behavioral case study technical questions, but it's mostly based on the type of role you are applying for or you're
So,
interviewing.
like, what type of technical questions were asked?
So just to give you an example, and this was for my internship. When I was applying for internships, I was shared an Excel sheet with some parts, components, pricing, and I was asked to find like a purchasing strategy based on the information and supplier selection, and that was test like my fundamentals on supplier selection, procurement strategies was tested through that question, where they had product pricing for different components. Some were reused, used, and new. And then from that, I had to. I'm not clear with the question right now, but basically, that's what I'm trying to say is the fundamentals is what was tested.
So basically, what you're saying is that they were asking like those fundamental concepts, but in terms of a question, they ask you so that they can
Exactly.
check your knowledge, basically,
Yes,
right?
yes. No
So
theoretical
like,
definitions.
yeah. So like, how you prepared for it? Like the courses helped you, or like you used to prepare on the side from internet doing those case studies, practice kind of thing.
So I did both. I practiced my technical skills, basically my technical knowledge on BI tools by practicing them on like a crash course on the internet, Udemy or any of that sort.
Yeah.
Even YouTube is helpful. But on the technical side, most of my concepts were covered in class through my supply chain management course. Everything was, most of the topics were covered there, all my strategies, and I had notes already prepared for it. So I didn't do anything outside of that.
Understood. So were you asked some like the technical questions like SQL or like Python or like do all those kind of things? Because for me, I just remember in one of the interviews, I was asked those kind of questions where they asked me like, do I know Python and do I know and if I can code in supply chain analyst role? But have you faced any issue, any situation where you were asked like, can you do like SQL, Python, or like where you were tested for that?
Yes, there were a few roles where I was asked if I could do SQL and Python. I was more proficient with SQL than Python, so I answered it that way. For me personally, I did not get any interviews where I was tested, like with on a
Yeah.
whiteboard or sharing screen and writing codes on SQL. If I would have, I would, but because I was proficient with SQL. But my friends did get some interviews where they had to like code and answer certain questions.
Yeah, because I think it's very rare if it's in job description. Like for example, I think in 90% of the job description you won't find 95% you won't find Python at all. It's very rare you will find Python in supply chain.
Yeah, it's
Mostly
mostly
what I think
SQL,
you will find is
SQL.
SQL.
Yes,
Like
right.
and most. And what I have felt till now, like the things that I have been asked in interviews were like, if in SQL they asked me something, it was mostly about like, for example, where you can use whereby statement or where you can do this statement instead of writing
Exactly.
a code in front of them.
So, yeah, basically testing your fundamentals, right?
Yeah, that's true. So like, what do you think? Like, what's the one question like people or students are most likely to mess up during the interview, and how they can answer it?
Great question. Well, simple answers. Tell me about yourself. That's the
Okay,
make or
yeah,
break of any interview, in my opinion. So, and that's the question which everyone takes lightly. They think, hey, like, tell me about yourself. I know about myself. I can speak on the, on the spot. But that's the question that governs the rest of your interview. So, prepare in advance that question in multiple formats. Have multiple basically scripts of what you've done in the past, because when you're on the spot, you sometimes forget what you did in the past, and you cannot
correct.
bring it up at right at that point. So I would say prepare for this question in advance. Have your script ready of what you did, how your career trajectory started, how it's moving, and what you want to do in the future. Have everything ready right on the spot. Be prepared with that.
So like, how much idle time is for to answer the tell me about yourself question?
I would say somewhere about 50 to 70 seconds is a good
Understood.
is
Around 2 minutes at max, we can say.
At,
Like, it should be around
yeah, like
1 to 2 minutes.
120, yeah, 120 seconds would be pushing it a bit, because then the interview will start to lose interest because they forget what you said in the middle or in the starting. So try to keep it crisp. So I used to prepare
Okay.
50 to 70 second mark.
So what do you use to include in that tell me about yourself? Like, what are things that you made sure that these are things should be covered in tell me about yourself?
Basically, your background, your educational background, basically, and then how that developed into your interests that align with your professional experience currently and what you want to do in the future. That could be
Correct.
one part. And then also, and this might be in any chronological order, however you want to add it in your pitch, because this is
Correct.
basically like a pitch, right? And also make sure to add in your experiences, what you've done in the past, currently what you're doing, and also how you see yourself evolve in the next short term to long term. Basically,
Understood.
around these topics are very important that you should cover in your tell me about yourself.
Okay. So like, have you also done any certifications apart from the one that you did in your college, like
No,
your MD one? No?
no, I haven't done.
Okay, so I have some questions around that because like we hear so much about, right? So you should have like Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certifications and all those kind of things, like Excel certifications you need. So like, do these certifications really help in pushing your career, or like they're just resume glitter?
No, no, no. I missed your question. I have a certification in
Okay,
Lean Six Sigma. Sorry, I missed that one. And apart from that, it's most of the certifications I have been done for my benefit. Like I haven't even included it on my resume. Many of them were on Udemy and LinkedIn Learning and stuff like that. But most important, I would say most important certification was my education in my master's degree in engineering management, and my supply graduate certification in supply chain management. These are the 90% bulk of my education lies within these two certifications or my degree. And apart from that, all the certifications that I've done, I will pursue would be in an attempt to upskill myself,
correct.
right? Not to boast about anything or get it on my resume just to increase the content of my resume. It's mostly just to keep myself upskilled with the current workforce and with the current technology, what's going on. Apart
Understood.
from that, no.
Were you asked in the interviews like about the Lean Sigma Green Belt certifications anytime, like something like that?
No, I do not remember anyone specifically talking about. It's pretty role specific. Some roles do need Six Sigma, and Six Sigma is it's a great tool to which you should have in your arsenal too. If your role requires you to create operational efficiencies, if let's say if you're in a manufacturing role or even in any sort of role, manufacturing is the most widely used, I would say, but even in a service based industry, you could use Lean Six Sigma.
Yeah, because I think it's similar with me. I also did Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, but I was never asked any questions around any of my certifications in interview. I
Exactly.
don't know if it helped me in getting that interview, like when I filled out the form when I was applying for the job, but no one asked me that question during my interview at all. So I think
Makes sense. Yeah.
that's
Well,
that's
if the
yeah.
job requires, if you see in the content of the job description required Lean Six Sigma, then they might bring it up. If it's a hard requirement, if it's not, then they might not even talk about it. Right.
Yeah. So now let's talk about your like full-time role that you're working at Pensys. So what's your like day-to-day life looks like? What tools you work on, and how is everything out?
So my day to day is I have commodities that I need to manage. I have X amount of spend with various split between various suppliers that I manage, and the most important tool that I use is Excel mostly because funny enough that you can do a lot with Excel, right? So right now I have a lot to do with Excel, and then some time is consumed by ERP tools, basically procurement tools.
Okay. So like which procurement tools, like Coupa or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. Coupa, you have SAP and iValua, and then similar nature tools,
Okay.
ERP
So
tools.
similar type of ERP tools related to
Yes.
procurement admin.
Yeah, yeah.
So like if I say like what's the time you spend in each software? So like how much time you spend working on Excel, how much time on ERP tools, or like how much time on you spend on like BI kind of visualization tools?
So again, in my role, it would be 50, 30, 20. 50 would be Excel, 30 would be ERP tools, 20 would be BI tools. But this again can vary based on the role. Some roles mostly have I see people, my friends, they say similar supply chain roles, they work only on BI tools. So most of the time is taken up by Power BI, Tableau, stuff like that, ClickSense.
Correct. Yeah, I think for me also it's mostly like I believe like 60% of the time or more than like goes into Excel kind of stuff, and then 10-20% goes into Power BI if I'm developing some dashboard. Then on that particular month it gets more, but in general it will be like around 10.
Exactly.
And then you have time for like ERP tools, for example, the ones we use like SAP and others, and then you like that 30 to 40 30% around goes over there. So I think it's similar with everyone, like the major chunk goes towards Excel always.
Yes.
So I think after like I've talked with so many people, like 8 to 10 people in the last couple of weeks regarding this who are working in supply chain. Everyone has said like Excel is something you need to know first,
Exactly.
then you have to go towards ERP and Power BI, and then it's okay, you work on SQL part. But if you know these are the ones, they are like we have been asked so much times, like 90% of the work will be done in these three softwares only.
Right, yes. If your role is more analytical or of an analyst, then you would be associated with SQL because
Yeah,
then you have to pull data from, various places, and which
correct.
is when you need to use Excel, SQL. And then once you get the data extracted, then it gets back to Excel.
I think that's definitely true. And like if I take your example, so like you're working in procurement, right? So what do you think, like is technical skills more important, or like soft skills like negotiation and communication matter more? Which ones wins in a real world?
I would say a fine blend of both. Soft skills definitely is required in a role where you need to speak with suppliers, engage with suppliers. And, within sourcing and procurement, suppliers are not the only entity you are working with, it's your internal customers also. So, definitely, you need to have that soft skills with you, not only technical skills. Technical skills, yes, obviously, but fine blend of both, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's true because people think so much about they have all the technical skills and why they are getting rejected in interviews. Because I think sometimes it's on how we talk with people during the
Exactly.
interview matters the most. Because in supply chain, that's where 50% of the time is going over the emails, telling people what
Great
needs to
point.
be done or
Yes.
telling people how it can be done or something. And you need to be like persuasive yet not too much intrusive that people will think like
Exactly.
they are going about you. So
Yes.
I think that's definitely true. So like as you said, like you have managed like supplier negotiation, right? You do supplier negotiations on a weekly or day-to-day basis. So what's the biggest mistake you have seen or you have done actually, like when dealing with suppliers?
I'm fairly new in my career, right? Couple of years only of experience. So I do not have that experience, but I have definitely seen through other people, listening to other people, and even through case studies. One of the common, I would say, I wouldn't call it as mistake, as a learning point that I've learned is that people are not flexible with terms. And by terms, I mean is if they have a set requirement that they're negotiating about, they do not show any flexibility. If let's say they want a product at X dollars, they are not going to bend or do anything other than get the product at X dollars, which I feel is a bit hard. When you're getting down to strategically negotiating terms or any matter of that sort, I think you need to be flexible with what you want to achieve and get out of the deal. And in supply chain, in sourcing and procurement, it's called BATNA. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So it's basically how you can be flexible with your approach to the deal and just appreciate flexibility, not stand hard on your ground. Well, there might be cases where you need that X amount, that price. But in most cases, it's if you're flexible, basically creating a win-win situation for both. Look for that opportunity where
Correct.
you can create a win situation for both the parties that will lead to a sustainable relationship also for both parties. So if you're just looking to win, you might lose out on the relationship on a long-term basis.
Because I think negotiation is always about win-win situation. If it's not a win-win situation, then it's not a negotiation. Then it's like an order that I need this to be done.
Yes, exactly.
As you work with suppliers, so like post-pandemic, like we see there is like lots of talk about bringing supply chain back to your own country, right? Which becomes very hard when there is pandemic or when there's some fights. The real question is it happening, or like it's very irresistible to go towards in-house manufacturing than going to the like Asia or like South America for cheap manufacturing?
Well, again, depends on the industry and your organization. For me, most of my procurement is done within the US because the nature of my industry is same day, next day delivery, and we do not necessarily bulk buy or have PDCs for our operations. It's mostly based on a dealer network. So we are getting our stuff from the dealers, and they might be getting it from those OEMs might be getting it from overseas. But for us, our operations is basically same day next day, so we cannot rely on global markets most necessarily. We do see supply chain disruptions because of our OEMs being tied to overseas suppliers. But to your point, yes, to some aspects it's coming back, where people or companies are now insourcing, not necessarily insourcing, reshoring, getting back their supply base to the home country. But again, then there's a price aspect to it, manufacturing in US as opposed to so it's a very strategic decision. You cannot just flip a switch and say no, it's a supply chain disruption, we want to get back, we want to reshore everything. It takes a lot of thought behind it. But to your point, it's kind of mixed, based on how the government regulations change and how the economy changes and all these global supply chain disruptions. It's I think now companies have they look at it that way also, and they have increased their horizons of their vision basically, and now also think about such disruptions, so that it's
Yeah.
basically building a resilient supply chain at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Before pandemic they didn't have a resilient supply chain, which is why the companies that suffered. But there are also some companies that had a resilient supply chain even before the pandemic, which were not affected by this. They
Correct.
were affected minimally. So again, fundamental is to create a resilient supply chain.
And I think with like what we are hearing from the Trump era is like the tariff threats to Asia and other countries. I think that will more escalate towards in-house supply chain, because if there are going to be high tariffs, then it's going to cost that much amount to bring that product into the country, right?
Well, again, it's going to be a strategic decision.
Yeah.
It's difficult to comment on it right at the outbreak of the news. Right, there's a lot that goes into just considering the pricing.
Correct.
Pricing might be cheaper from overseas, or pricing might be same when reshored. But then there might be other aspects that we are not aware of that need to be
Correct.
thought about, which is what you need to do when you're building a resilient supply chain, right?
Yeah. So let's push this further and think about like AI, right? So AI and automation, how they are going to affect supply chain, and are supply chain people going to replace by AI?
Honestly, well, I do not think AI is going to replace anyone. AI is only going to help you do your job better,
Correct.
for everyone on a general standpoint. And if you feel that AI is going to replace a job, or if it does replace a job, then I believe that that job shouldn't have been there at the first place. Even if the newcomers are newer than me, they should not fear of them getting replaced by AI. As long as you upskilling yourself, and you bring that value add to the team, which makes you, I wouldn't say irreplaceable because everyone is replaceable. I would say make yourself hard to replace, basically, by the value add you bring to the team and by your unique set of skills.
Correct. I think, yeah, that's true because in supply chain, it's more about talking with people and getting those issues done, which is very hard with current AI we have. And I don't know how it will behave in like next 5 years or 10 years. But like the issues, like for example, pandemic came now, we have to talk with suppliers and get those things done. It all depends on how we are personally connected with supplier and how he knows us better and how he's willing to help us till what extent.
Yeah, right. Like there is a very important aspect to supplier relationship management where you have to build a rapport with the supplier, right? That I don't think so that could be replicated by AI. AI, yes, they can help automate stuff that's manual and make like free yourself with mundane tasks. Basically, you can do other tasks instead of that, in that time span. So it's just going to help you do your job better, is what I feel about AI.
That's true. Thanks for sharing. So now let's come back again to like the student side of it. So like if someone has like 4 or 6 months left with them to prepare for their full time or the co-op, what's one thing they should do to get ahead in the competition?
I would say brush or revise your skills on the like technical skills. Do a crash course on BI tools. Brush up your SQL codes, and then do a lot of case studies.
Okay. Yeah, I think yeah, brushing up like if you have like 6 months left with you, brushing up those skills helps you. And then after 6 months, like you have when you have 4 months or 5 months left, then you start working on your resume side of it. So that now when there are only 4 months left, you are totally into it and all set to apply with your technical skills all set and your resume is and cover letter.
True.
So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Resume,
So
obviously. Yeah.
as I forgot to ask this previous also, like, did you meet cover letter for a job set?
No, I did not. But there were some jobs where the cover letter had a star mark, which basically meant
Yeah.
required. Only for those I uploaded a cover letter, but I did not
Okay.
upload a cover letter for every job.
Yeah, I think for me it was like the dream companies which I want to get into, like Fang, Facebook, Meta, like Apple, Google, and all those. I used to apply through cover letter, and if in any other company if there is star mark in cover letter, I used to skip that job and go ahead to the next application.
Yeah, that's a good point, a good strategy. Well, because end of the day, and to your point, yes, you're right. If it's a role that you want and they have a cover letter option, might as well apply it. Do whatever you can, right?
Yeah,
Give your best. But at the end of the day, again, you need to continuously apply. And if a job is requesting a cover letter and you don't, it's not 100% aligned, then you can essentially skip it.
okay. Yeah, I think and cover letter I think it's biased upon people to people whom it helped and whom it not. So for example, as I never made cover letters that much, it never like I never got help. So I always say like focus more on resume than putting like changing cover letter for everyone. But
Exactly.
for example, second person who just like who was hired, like we were like two-person hired in the same role in a team. But the second person he put in his cover letter when he was applying for a job, and because of that, he was one of the person who was got called for the interview.
Yeah, well, again, it's very subjective.
Yeah,
It's very subjective. If you want to do the effort, you can. But I'll give you honest my approach, what I did, right? And for some people it might work out, for some it might not.
correct. I think it's you should hear to everyone and do what you think is best for you.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
because everyone will have different things on how they have done all those stuff,
Exactly.
and different things have worked for different people. Like referral never worked for me. I never got a call from a referral, but like one of my friend got his job through referral only. Like so, I think definitely it's biased on how people have got those things.
Yes, same here. Yeah, referrals could be helpful, but in most cases it doesn't.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, a referral is only a referral unless you have like a direct contact in the team and you know that person, the person knows you well, and then you can refer that person directly to the hiring manager. That's the serious referral that we're talking about. A referral only if you're working for a company, you have a referral portal, you just send the link, they apply through that link. Those referrals do not work out much. The referrals that
correct,
actually do work are those where you have someone in the team who knows their team is hiring, they know the hiring manager, and then where you can get them connected. That's a true referral.
correct. I think yeah, that's where like people say there are multiple tiers of referral. So one is like if you know directly the higher management who is managing those teams. Like for example, if a manager is hiring, director or senior manager of that team, then that's one place where if you get recommended from them. The second is if you know manager directly,
Hmm.
then that's the second place who has highest chance of getting that interview. Then the third is like if you know someone in the team where it's getting hired, then there is another chance you're getting, and then last one is like getting referrals from random from any person in that company.
Yes, right, exactly.
So yeah, so that's where I want to go towards next is like networking side of it. So do you think like networking is important, and like have you felt like you got help with networking side in your job search?
Yes, definitely. Networking in the long run, it definitely plays a very important role. But nowadays people see networking as a transactional relationship where they just want to network just to get a role currently.
Correct.
Whereas I see networking as a long-term game where you build a genuine relationship with the person, and not only have as a transactional relationship, build a relationship where you are adding value to that relationship, not just for a referral or a job opening of that sort. So networking is definitely a very important and powerful tool, but caveat is you don't consider it as a transactional relationship.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's something. Yeah, because like how you approach networking is all it depends on, right?
Exactly.
Because like if you approach towards getting something from starting, it's very hard, right?
So some people approach networking as, hey, I am an alumni of the college you studied at. Can you refer me for this role? That's not how networking works, right?
Yeah, that's true. I have like couple of quick fire questions. So rapid fire questions I have with for you, which
Hmm.
won't take more than a couple of minutes. So my first would be like what interview questions that student must prepare for.
I said that before. Tell me about yourself.
Okay, the most overrated skill in supply chain.
Forecasting, inventory management.
Okay, what's harder, managing suppliers or managing internal stakeholders?
I would say none if you know how to do it.
Okay, because like are those I'll just get a bit like are those similar, like is like different way you manage suppliers and different way you
No,
handle
I
this.
do it the same way.
Okay. Okay, and one buzzword in supply chain that drives you crazy.
Lead time.
Yeah, I think that's something we have been asked how to get it reduced, how to get it reduced every day in and out
Yes,
and
yes,
supply
yes.
chain. That's okay. Now one last question I have for you is like, what advice would you give to your younger self? Like, if you were just joining your master's program, or if you are just 1 year in master's, what advice would you give yourself now to get ahead in the game?
Honestly, I did everything that was in my control. There were aspects that were outside of my control that didn't work out in my favor, which would have changed certain things. But if I think about what right from the timeline from 2021 where I joined my masters and to the point now, I think um, I nothing comes to my mind where I would say, hey, I would do something differently.
Correct.
I believe
Okay.
like I tried my best in every aspect and controlled everything I could. Certain things which were not under my control is not going to be in anyone's control, right?
Correct.
So
I think that's how people should think about it. Like, do what you can, give
exactly,
100% of it, and then forget about what the result is going to be. Because
exactly,
every person's journey is different. Like, you will see that your friends getting placed at like Microsoft, Amazon in like 2 months, and you will see, okay, I'm not getting any interview call. What am I doing
exactly.
wrong? It might be something that's not in your hand, or something that's okay. It's good thing that you need to reiterate on your resume or cover letter, talk with people, but you don't have to be so harsh on yourself that hey, where I'm going wrong, and think about
Yeah,
it in all day and all out, because
just
everyone
focus.
have their different career journey they have
Exactly.
written.
Just
But
focus on what you have to do and just focus on and do that basically.
yeah, so yeah, thank you so much for joining us and telling all those things. I definitely think it will help students who will be listening this. So yeah, thank you so much for joining in.
No, thank you again, Samyak, for having me. Hope this helps your audience, the newcomer students that might see this and get inspired or get some sort of help. I'm glad to be able to share my journey with you and your
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Samyak. Yeah, have a good one.